Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. So first up today on this new video from Tesla about testing the Cybertruck seats, just want to point out two things. It does appear that this part of the seat is perforated, which would indicate hopefully ventilated seats. And two, if you take a freeze frame, here is the driver's side seat controls, and this would be the passenger side. And at least from this angle, it does appear like there's no lumbar support adjustment for the passenger. Walter Isaacson also shared an excerpt from his book talking about how Elon and the team decided on the Cybertruck design back in 2017. Elon said, "We're going to do this whole thing in stainless steel." The use of stainless opened up new possibilities for the look of the truck. Instead of using stamping machines that would sculpt carbon fiber into body panels with subtle curves and shapes, stainless would favor straight planes and sharp angles. That allowed, and in some ways forced, the design team to explore ideas that were more futuristic, edgier, even jarring. But the better quote, Elon was looking at a truck from Ford and he said, "These things are boring." Elon doesn't like to be bored. He puts up things for movies, sci-fi, video games, and everybody is pushing back on him at this meeting. He finally says, "Stop it. We're going to do it. We're going to make it edgy." These are some unofficial numbers from credit card companies taking reservations, but last week we talked about the Model Y rear-wheel drive launching in Korea on Thursday. Fast forward to yesterday on Monday, and they apparently already have over 13,000 orders. And the credit card industry in Korea is calling this the Tesla craze. There are some unofficial reports that might have that order number higher at around 15,000. Either way, the deposit fee is a little bit higher in Korea at $2,400 each. And for context, all of 2022, Tesla sold 14.5 thousand cars in Korea. This variant of the Model Y does qualify for some subsidies, and as we mentioned last week, at the same time, Model 3 orders are no longer available in Korea. Given that we're supposed to be only about a month or two away from Project Highland Model 3 production out of China, that would make some sense. On a similar note, just last Friday, the Model Y went on sale in Malaysia. Fast forward a few days, and it sounds like they already have more than 10,000 orders in 4 days. Actual deliveries to Malaysia are not expected until Q1 of 2024, but certainly off to a good start. In the latest V4 supercharger rollout update, we got the 4th V4 station, this one in Graz, Austria, and apparently the first one with the screen and a possible credit card reader. There are 2 V4 stations in France, and the 4th one right now is in the Netherlands.
And here you can see the converters, the power converters. And here, if you follow me, they already built some version 4 superchargers with the typical CCS connector. And also what you can see is a display where people were thinking this can be a payment terminal or a display for charging information.
Unfortunately, this is one of the better photos we have, and honestly, you really can't tell at all what is behind this screen and what type of functionality this area might have. One more, mostly reflection, but you can tell something is going on over here. Hopefully we get some better pictures soon. This is pure speculation on my part, but maybe that screen area is something like a barcode or a QR code reader rather than actually something taking credit card payments. But right now, anything is still possible. Zero Hedge shared an article talking about US industrial production post first annual decline in 28 months, to which Elon said, well, at least SpaceX, Starlink, and Tesla have significantly increased US production over that time frame. We don't need to dive into the detail, and I feel like I say this fairly frequently, but to any Americans out there that don't actually support and root for these companies, Tesla, SpaceX, Starlink, it really just makes no sense to me because they really are so critical to our future when it comes to having a sustainable economy, innovation, and everything along those lines. I do think one day more Americans will wake up to supporting the Tesla mission, but it could be 10 years into the future. Speaking of that, here are a few quick excerpts from a JB Straubel conversation just yesterday.
To address the climate emergency, we need things at speed and scale, And few companies, and honestly, few individuals have achieved speed and scale like you and Tesla. So what lessons do you learn from that?
Well, it was definitely difficult. That was more difficult to do both those things than we would have assumed in the beginning.
And particularly for the man you were doing it for.
He was instrumental in helping, make it happen too. But we had several unforced errors. I'm sure he'd be the first to admit, we made a lot of mistakes along the way. It was only because we started so early that we had the luxury of making some of those mistakes and not getting killed. It's a lot harder thing when you start a company and you're up against a really strong set of industry incumbents. You kind of have to execute perfectly, no missteps. But the scale is coming back to the scale. That's critical. To make an impact on sustainability, on global climate, you need scale. Ideas and startup ideas are relatively more common, but we need things that can scale and do it enormously quickly to actually make a dent on the whole problem. Well, I love Tesla. I always have. I feel like it has some sort of place in my heart, and it probably will for the rest of my life. I love the team there. I love the mission, the products. It's awesome. Doesn't mean it's an easy place to work. It's challenging. It kind of needs to be successful, I think.
How concerned are you that this country or even your own company will overinvest heavily in a supply chain based on current lithium-ion technology, only to have newer, cheaper battery chemistries enter the market?
That one, I'm really not worried about that one. It's a question and a concern that comes up frequently. It's come up throughout the entire arc of the development at Tesla, and I think the timeline is so long on some products. Like a new EV. To conceive of it, to build a model year, to ramp it, lifetime of that product. Even if a battery technology sort of matured and changed, if solid state, promises everything it can do, it'll be wonderful, but it's relevant a product generation or two in the future. So I don't see really any risk right now that we're over-investing, I should say, in scale on some of these products. From every angle I look at it, we're dramatically under-investing. And under-investing in the supply chain, under-investing in refining, infrastructure, products. So that's what keeps me up at night. It's not an over-investment concern. Well, as you said, I'm an optimist on the capabilities of what technology can do. I can see a pathway. It's kind of frustrating to both see a pathway that can solve things with known technology. We don't have to invent new physics or chemistry.
We just use what we have today.
We can do it today. But at the same time, we are not going fast enough. We're absolutely not going fast enough. And I don't think we maybe collectively realize how bad it probably will get. There's so much inertia in this system that we're meddling with. It's part of what lights the urgency. For me, is seeing and feeling the fact that this problem is so big. It touches every part of our economy. Really, it's not a dramatization to say that.
It was mostly a high-level conversation, but it was still pretty good. If you want to see the whole thing, it'll be down below. Ray for Tesla shared this chart, went ahead and translated it. Not everything will make sense, but the point is, the Model Y was the best-selling SUV in China for the month of June, 51.4 thousand units, almost doubling up number 2, the BYD Song, at just over 27,000. Later this year, there will be a fully operational battery energy storage project using Tesla Megapacks in Rockhampton in Australia, specifically in Bouldercombe. This in Queensland, being built and run in tandem by GenX, PowerLink, and of course Tesla. It's a 100 megawatt hour project, or about 40 Tesla Megapack units. Tesla will operate the plant to maximize revenues in the energy arbitrage and frequency control ancillary services markets, while providing a guaranteed minimum level of revenues. The batteries use Tesla's AutoBidder software and will be operated by Tesla for 8 years under an agreement that guarantees GenX's revenue. So that's cool, but what's even cooler is the project roughly 8 times that size and one in the United States in Massachusetts. The Energy Siting Facilities Board approved 2 energy storage facilities with a combined capacity of 800 megawatt hours, which will fulfill 80% of the state's 1 gigawatt hour energy storage deployment target for 2025. The first location will be in Medway, Massachusetts, and will include 140 Tesla Megapacks on the site. The second site will be in Carver, Massachusetts, and will actually serve the whole of the New England region using Tesla Megapacks. Wanted to highlight this has been under development for the last 6 years, dating back to 2017. I was not able to find an official expected online date, but given that this means imminent construction, I would guess sometime toward the end of 2024. We get some more analysis on automotive brand loyalty, this time around from Ward's Auto. The main takeaway, Tesla was the runaway winner in retaining owner loyalty. S&P Global Mobility is saying that the inventory is recovering from the shortages, but the loyalty, not so much. From the report, traditionally, Toyota is neck and neck with Ford and Chevy when it comes to loyalty, but in the first 4 months of 2023, Toyota is a disappointment. We'll have to see if this is an aberration. Every brand but Tesla is losing more households than it's keeping. So what is the Tesla effect? Well, fewer than half of households bought the same brand when they returned to the market. Now we're talking about in the luxury brand segment. Only Tesla bucked that trend with 68% of its owners buying another Tesla. BMW, Mercedes, and Lexus have been impacted substantially by migration to Tesla. And they say, if you have a narrow product portfolio, it's difficult to have the same range of brand loyalty, which on the surface makes sense, but let's not forget, Tesla has been operating with 4 models now. Relatively speaking, that's pretty narrow. So far in 2023, 7.5% of BMW households migrated to Tesla, compared to 6.8% for all of 2022. 8.9% have left Mercedes to go to Tesla this year, and for Lexus, 7.2%. All 3 seeing more migration to Tesla than they did last year. Every mainstream brand except Fiat in the first part of this year has seen accelerated migration to Tesla. And Honda this year is up to 6.4% migration to Tesla. They say the only chance some of these companies have to change these trends, having a buyer financed through a manufacturer's captive finance company, something we've been talking about the past few weeks Tesla may be quietly doing more of. Not too bad for a busted growth story. Today, before the official expansion plans are made available to the public tomorrow, Tesla is getting ahead of things by holding a public question and answer session. We've talked about the next phase bumping up production capacity to 1 million units per year, and now they're mentioning that 50 gigawatt hours of battery production capacity as well. Tesla workers answered queries from locals on things like water use, biodiversity protection, and the environmental impact. Given that the public has until mid-September to make their objections, we may not hear more about this again until closer to October. From the Korea Economic Daily, we have Samsung set to make Tesla's 5th generation hardware 5 computer chip. I really like this one because if there was ever a perfect microcosm for the essence of Tesla, this would be a pretty good one. We're still rolling out hardware 4. It has not made its way into Tesla's best-selling car yet completely, and they're already talking about hardware 5 and working on the supply chain for that. To be clear, Tesla designs its own FSD computers, but has other companies like TSMC and Samsung actually manufacture them. For now, the chips will be made on Samsung's 4 nanometer process and will go into the hardware 5, plans to mass produce 3 to 4 years from now. But it sounds like Tesla's looking to split up the supply chain to have more suppliers. Tesla plans to work with both TSMC and Samsung, or could switch from TSMC, which was the report for hardware 5 last year, to Samsung altogether, basically because Samsung has reportedly made some advancements with their smaller nanometer processes. Not only that, but it doesn't hurt when you have the Samsung chairman offering Elon terms including favorable contract prices that he could not refuse. Tesla's relentless innovation paired with its supply chain relationships and ultimately prowess is still slept on. From Drive Tesla Canada, Tesla has proposed a 60,000 square foot sales, service, and delivery center in Port Coquitlam, BC, but it's not your average. The proposal is being presented at a council meeting today on Tuesday, but If this goes through, this would become a terminal destination for vehicles shipped to Canada via US and Shanghai, with 75% or more of the cars that arrive in Canada going through this location, which is why it's designed to have over 650 parking spaces and serve as a parts storage and distribution center. Once up and running, it should be able to deliver around 40 new cars every day and service around 50 cars each day. Speaking of parts distribution, Tesla is continuing down that path of keeping more inventory on hand and parts, whether it's for service or actual production, moving slightly away from the just-in-time manufacturing method. Tesla has selected a 927,000 square foot building right across from the Newburgh Mall for a regional car parts distribution center. This is a big win for the UK at an important time, but we have Tata Motors, the owner of Jaguar Land Rover, planning to set up a battery facility in the UK. Thought it was worth passing along because some in the industry are calling this the most important investment in UK automotive since Nissan came to Britain in the 1980s. This new factory in Somerset will supply batteries for a new range of electric Jaguar and Land Rover models. There are significant levels of subsidies for this deal, but they have not been disclosed. What did we say at the beginning of this year? It's a huge one for GM. All of their bets are on this Ultium platform, and 2023 was the year these deliveries are supposed to ramp. Now they're pushing some of those aspirations back to the second half of this year. GM's president of North America said this week, GM is coming up to speed on battery capacity and building momentum, and I anticipate a lot more EVs being built in the second half of this year than the first half. When focusing on passenger Ultium cars, we really only have the Hummer EV and the Lyriq. Those combined in the first half of this year are below 3,000 sales, so I would hope the second half is a little better. A source at Factory Zero said about the Hummer EV, some of them have shipped, but some need updates on the software. It's moving very slow. We've had supply issues, anything in the supply chain, could be the drive units, anything. You get one part and suddenly it's different than the one that's needed. The president admitted to the slow ramp up of the Lyriq and the Hummer, but pointed to battery module availability as the only supply part hiccup. On that point, I do want to mention, a little birdie has told me that GM on the commercial side has actually been struggling to find buyers for their commercial EV BrightDrop vans. They're blaming it on the battery shortages, and that may be true to some degree, but I'm hearing that there may also be a lack of demand outside of California, because the word is that vehicle has fallen short when it comes to range, efficiency, etc. One more for good measure, GM also pointing the finger at a shortage of rail cars, so getting the cars from the manufacturer site down to the customer, ultimately the dealers. We get a big win for Rivian in Georgia for this next factory for the R2 lineup. Some of the locals were pushing back on some of the incentives that the government wanted to give to Rivian, but those cases are not going to be heard, so Rivian now gets the green light. The earlier decision from the Court of Appeals in support of the Rivian project is now final. So it sounds like the roughly $1.5 billion incentive package that Rivian got to set up shop in Georgia is good to go. A formal groundbreaking ceremony for the Rivian factory has yet to take place, but it's expected to begin production in 2026. Earlier this year, Electrify America moved to try to have all stations nationwide with uniform pricing. Today, that's changing. They're going back to station-specific pricing. Really no surprise given the variability region to region. This just makes more sense. But Electrify America is also increasing their membership rates and reintroducing idle fees. The station-specific pricing should go into effect August 17th. The monthly fee will increase from $4 to $7, but those subscribers get to keep the 25% discount on charging fees. Even if it's only a $3 raise, it's 75% for a service that many customers are already frustrated with. Don't forget, no video from me tomorrow on Wednesday for Tesla Q2 earnings. I like to take in the day and digest the report, and then we'll talk about it briefly on Thursday with the regular news. But the first three numbers I'll be looking at: Tesla's operating margin, because they told us that's what they're focusing on. 2 will be auto gross margin ex credit, no surprise. And 3 will be the free cash flow. There's a chance it could dip negative this quarter. Not anything to be concerned about at all for the long term. Just 3 things I'm curious about, and honestly, whether they're great or terrible in the long run, means very little. So no matter what happens, hope you all can sit back, relax, and enjoy the day. You can find me on Twitter at DylanLoomis22. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Please like the video if you did, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.